to another episode of Chatterbox with me, Mel Biggs. This is the podcast where I get to sit down with a bunch of my mates from across Europe, some of the very best folk musicians that you'll ever get to meet and hear. And I'm really honoured this month to be joined by the fabulous Toon Van Mierlo from Naragonia. Yes, we had Pascal last month, and now we have the other half of Naragonia, Toon. He's probably my favourite dance music composer on the scene at the moment, and his music has percolated through the scene over many, many years, not only in his band Naragonia, the quartet, Novar and Hot Griselda, and the duo with Martin Decombel, amongst many others. He's had a lot over the years. But also other bands that have played his music and the session scene. I mean, over here in the UK, there's not really any Euro sessions that happen without a Naragonia tune or two. And I hear it a lot when I'm travelling across Belgium and France as well. So that is just so wonderful to get to hear his music. Has had such a huge impact. This month we get to chat about all sorts of things to do with composing and his process, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And he shared a lot of his tips and his process in a live Melinar where he composed a tune in real time. In fact, 2 tunes. So if you're interested in learning a tune and making one up yourself, you can check out that Melinar on my Patreon. The link is in the description below. We also get to discuss how to look after your mental health and well-being whilst you're on the road and as a busy touring musician, and how having a portfolio career involving other things than performing can really help to keep the spirit of joy and balance in life alive. And we get to share stories of working in the theatre, as we've both got experience of that. Just a small apology to start off with, that my microphone setting was not correct when I interviewed Toon. I've processed it as much as possible, but it is a little bit hot in places, so I have done my best, but just to let you know that it will be better next month when I push the right button. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the wonderful Toon Van Mierlo from Belgium. Hey Toon, we have jumped on a Zoom. We've both said how tired we are, but I'm very much looking forward to chatting with you this afternoon, so thank you so much.
Yeah, me too, Mel.
You have been absolutely everywhere doing everything by the looks of Facebook. What have you just been up to and where are you heading to next?
The last weekend we were in Germany with the quartet, and we had 3 gigs on Friday in Berlin, on Saturday more in the south of East Germany, and on Sunday a very lovely garden party in closer to our house in Krefeld. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of driving then, was it?
Quite a lot of driving. Yes, indeed. It's part of the job.
It's most of the job, is it?
It's most of the job. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, today I went to look for a new car because our car is so old. And I got some complaints of the other musicians. It's
No, I was out with you just recently, and you were driving us around in that and saying how good it was doing. It was 14 years old or something. And...
Yeah. It still goes, but it's some things happening now. Yeah.
I hope that you were able to find a good steed and
Thank you.
Can do you as well as that. What's coming up for you? What's next on the list for you, performance-wise?
On Saturday, I have it's a long story, but I have now a program in Belgium of 4 concerts about nature and music. So this Saturday will be the last one of these 4 concerts. So during the day there's a walk in nature to watch the birds, insects, and all of this. And then in the night there's a concert. And this time it's with Olle Heges. And Olle, I think you know, of the workshops here at home. So she will sing, and with Pascal, and normally it was with Philippe Mazur, a lovely guitar player who plays lots of Irish music. But he had a bicycle accident, so he won't be there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he will recover and be okay.
I hope so too.
It's interesting to hear you say about the nature inspirations and the talks and the things like that, because that is definitely a huge part of what I would love to explore with you today.
Yeah.
I know you well. Let's just start off by saying that we've grown very close as friends over the last couple of years, which I am so grateful for, and it's just so special to have that connection. And I knew before I knew you that there was that connection with nature, and then was not so surprised to find out that you studied ecology. And you have a BSc in ecology studies. I think that's what you told me.
I don't know what BSc is, but I studied at university. For ecology, exactly. Yeah.
So it's clearly, I mean, comes across so strongly in, you know, your musical, just even the titles of the things you call your tunes. But obviously, if you just look at the cover art and all sorts of different things, and then this gorgeous project. Talk to us a little bit about your ecological background and where the music kind of crossed over, but maybe starting with the degree, and kind of, did you work as an ecologist for a period of time, or?
I did, yeah. And I think maybe it's a funny story because my biggest passion is nature, and music came later. When I was a child, from child on, I think I was 3, 4 years old. My first memories were about nature, actually, and of course of my family. But it's been always very strong in my life. And when I was 10, I knew most of the birds. And another big passion was dragonflies. So birds and dragonflies were the biggest. And then later I started to watch plants and more the ecological systems, butterflies as well. But yeah, the whole thing, very passionate about that. And then I went to study biology when I was 18, and actually, to be honest, when I'm really honest, I hated it. Because yeah, the things I love, I suddenly had to study them, and that was very, very strange to be obliged to study them. For me, it was a passion. But at that time, after 2 years, I quit the study to work as a volunteer for 1 year in Ireland.
Oh wow.
Because I was absolutely, I think it was a, yeah, it was not a burnout. I had lots of energy, but I didn't have the, yeah, I felt I had to do something else. So I went to Camp Hill. I don't know if do you know Camp Hill? It's
I don't. But
yeah,
whereabouts are we in Ireland?
it was at the east coast, so Dublin, and a bit beneath was Naas, and the town was called Kilcullen. And a Camp Hill is actually a very lovely thing. It's a anthroposophic, so Rudolf Steiner community with disabled people. So I lived there for 1 year as a volunteer, and that is actually where I really started to enjoy a lot folk music. So that was the real start of. I didn't play yet really, a little bit on a tin whistle, but that was the big discovery actually that year. But then when I came back, I finished my studies because I felt a bit obliged. In the end, it was stupid that I finished my studies, but because I didn't like the academical approach.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, it's a personal thing. I find it wonderful if people do like it, but I'm not an academical person, not at all.
It's really hard work. It's a completely different way of making your brain work, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
I can relate to. I had a hard time at university. I also studied a science. I did molecular biology, of all
Ah,
things,
yeah, yeah. We are,
which I think for me was a bit too niche. If
yeah,
I had done something like ecology or biology, something about
yeah, yeah,
macro
yeah.
systems, saying that, I found it fascinating, and I know I can relate a lot of my musical career and the things I do now, or my online business. I'm very scientific in my approach to that, but
Hmm.
yeah, academics was always easy for me as a kid, not so much as I got older. It was,
Hmm.
you know, something I had to force my brain to do.
Hmm.
So I totally get where you're coming from there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
well done for going back. Did you stick with biology, or did you change course, or you made yourself get that
Oh no,
biology degree?
I finished it really, but when I came back, it was really funny. So I was very passionate about Irish music, listening to lots of CDs. Was the time of Keela and Lunasa and Michael McGoldrick and all these guys. So I bought lots of CDs in Ireland. And when I got back, there was a Belgian maker, Agi de Keizer. He made me a chanter. It was because I didn't have the money for the bag and the bellows.
Yeah.
So I went to a shoemaker and I bought some very cheap leather, and we made together the bellows and the bag. And then I still had to do this 2 years in university, and I only played. I did once an examination with the professor, which I had never seen because I never went to the course. I was
I'm
playing.
I'm gonna hold my hand up and say I also did something incredibly similar, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
passed just about, but yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
it
yeah.
was yeah.
Same story. same story. Yeah,
Do you still have? I assume that's a set of uilleann pipes or some type
yeah,
of bagpipe.
yeah,
Do you
yeah, yeah,
still
yeah,
have
yeah.
that set?
No, no, I sold. No, I sold it. I don't have it. You know, I like to buy instruments and to sell instruments and to buy new ones,
Yeah,
and I never have emotional relation with my instrument, so I don't mind selling them if someone's happy. The most important if it's if
they
they
get
can,
played.
yeah, they get played. Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't surprise me that you have a huge inspiration and artistic influence from Irish music, because actually one of my questions was going to be, I can hear it a lot in your
yeah,
compositions and a lot of bands
yeah,
that
yeah,
you've played, obviously uilleann pipes and whistles. You
yeah,
do have a very Celtic flair to what you do.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I grew up with my dad with listening to Irish music in his van, like driving around as a kid and stuff. I wouldn't say I wasn't really into music for my own tastes until mid-teens, mid to late teens, so quite a late bloomer really in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But I was influenced a lot by what he listened to.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
yeah, Dubliners, Chieftains,
Yeah, yeah,
Bothy
yeah, yeah.
Band,
Oh, yeah,
really trad
yeah,
Irish
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful.
So yeah, and he got himself a set of uilleann pipes. I had a little
All
go for a
right.
bit. So, and I think
Oh, Mel, we share everything.
I don't know whether I could play it now, but I think he started hiding them from me because A, they were very expensive.
Oh, it is.
B, I was practicing and he wasn't, so I was getting good and he was a
Yeah.
little bit like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but gorgeous. So when did
Right.
you make the transition? Well, you play so many instruments, so it
Yeah,
was whistle first, then these bagpipes that you made.
yeah,
Tell me a little bit about the evolution of you becoming this incredible multi-instrumentalist.
yeah. Maybe to really be complete. When I was young, that means when I was 9, I went to music school and I played the classical oboe for 3 years, I believe. So until I was 12. It was classical oboe, and then when I say classical, it was very classical. I only played yeah, classical music. So for me, it was. I'm sorry to say it for my old teacher, but it was very boring. So I felt when I was adolescent or becoming a bit older, I was so passionate about nature, so I was all the time in nature. I didn't feel the energy to continue music, so I stopped. And then when I got to Ireland, there was the moment that I said, "Ah, this can be music. This is what I want." It was a little bit of folk music in Belgium that I discovered, but in Ireland was really the moment that yeah. I said,
It's everywhere there, isn't it? I don't know
this
what it.
guy was
It's,
everywhere.
yeah,
Some amazing musicians just playing in the pub. You say,
yeah.
how is this possible? And that was really big discovery. And then this is what the music. It's so alive in Ireland. It's so beautiful, so part of the culture, and such a lovely music. So that was the big thing. But to answer your question, how I went um, to all these other instruments. I think the fact that I studied as a kid made my brain work. I
Mm.
think when I didn't do this, it was only a few years, but if I hadn't done this years, I think it would have gone much more slow. And for me, an instrument, you have to practice.
Yeah.
So with just time, you can learn whatever instrument. If you want to learn the violin tomorrow, yeah, you will have to practice a lot. You have to play hours and hours to get a good sound. And then you have music. For me, it's two different things. So the instrument, yeah, it just depends how much you practice on it.
So when did you start? I mean, you play, let's just say, bagpipes of various different
Hmm.
flavors,
Yeah,
like genres. Saxophone, which I only know of you as a sop sax, but I don't know if that's always been the case. Have you?
I have a I have a tenor sax, and
Yeah.
I have a baritone sax as well,
Oh
which
my
which
gosh.
yeah, which I love, but I
Yeah.
never played. I'm now at the point, and it's since a few years that I'm stopped playing new instruments because I'm so busy with all the bands. Of course, in the first place with my family and the children, and where I should be more. But yeah, that's another
Yeah.
story. But yeah, my life is full now, so I don't have spare time to. Although the day I'm sure the day when there's time again, I will learn a new instrument because I love to experiment with
And I
new.
suppose it's just how your brain works. You just,
Yeah,
the puzzle solving aspects of a new
yeah,
instrument, a new
yeah,
challenge,
absolutely.
new timbres and things to
Yeah,
explore and that
absolutely.
kind of thing.
New
Yeah.
inspiration. We will talk about composition later on. My view on these things is in each instrument, because the sound is different, you will get new inspiration. Sometimes I say in each instrument there's lots of tunes hidden, and that's a bit my approach to. It's the same with we are now talking about melodies, but if you take a B flat, E flat melodian, you will play completely different music than on a
Yeah.
DG or a GC. I understand the image of all your melodians behind you.
Yeah, for those watching the video, as if you don't know, I have a stack of them behind me. But they are all different tunings, and I
Yeah,
completely agree. They're different people, is how I.
yeah,
They're different spirits that live within them, and
absolutely.
they speak
Yeah.
differently. Yeah. One of the questions, actually, we've answered loads already from what we've had from my Patreon community, but somebody has asked, when you are sitting down to write something,
Mhm.
what is it that, do you go with something in your head and think that would fit on XYZ? Do you pick up the bagpipes and noodle around and then that's a bagpipe tune, or do you switch between things to see where melodies fit the best? Kind of what's your feel around
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it has to do a lot with how you write music. If you write it on your instrument, of course, it will, when you fiddle around on a bagpipe, it will be a bagpipe tune because
Yeah.
and then later you can transpose it to another instrument. But it really depends. It really depends. For me, I have several ways of composing music. And the most common way for me to compose music is on the instrument. I just sit down, I play, and I listen to myself what comes out. And then, yeah, most of it is rubbish, but sometimes there's something nice. And then you try to start with this little part and work through. Sometimes, I think the most famous stupid tune I've written is it's not stupid, but it's a funny tune. It's Hellebore,
I thought
and
you were
I
going to
know,
say that for some reason. It's
yeah,
like one of your most famous, most well loved tunes. But
yeah. Everyone who plays it finds it works well on his instrument. It's like an a tune that fits lots of instruments.
fits everywhere.
And the funny thing is, this tune was written, I think, I don't exaggerate, in less than 2 minutes. I'm quite sure. Yeah, it was just the tune was there. It's like this is
Yeah.
the tune. And sometimes you struggle with tunes and you need days to get through. What helped me a lot is, we will talk about it later on as well, but just to make lots of tunes and to be able to throw them in the bin, to be very yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's the same as with my instrument. I'm not attached to my instruments. I'm not attached to my tunes. Once you've written the tunes, it's a tune, who cares if it's my tune or it's just a tune, and it will get its own life. And most of the tunes, they die immediately in the bin, and some, yeah, they survive, and so that's nice. But I don't have any attachment with a tune. And sometimes it doesn't matter if it's my tune or another tune. It just, is it nice music or is it?
When you are performing the music, and obviously
Yeah,
then that has to go through an arrangement process, and you're kind of
yeah,
collaborating with the human beings who are making that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there any emotion involved in it for you then, like, and the performance with an audience and the relationship you then have with an audience?
Yeah, absolutely. There, I think, is the emotion and the interhuman thing, and what music can do. There, it happens. But don't understand me wrong. A tune can have an emotion, can have a big emotion, but I'm not emotionally attached to the tune. That's what I mean. I love
Yeah.
the emotion of a tune, but I'm not attached to that. It's my tune or something. For me, it's like when I've written a tune, it it might travel or it might not, and there it stops. And some tunes does, and some tunes don't. And for example, I remember Mira, a tune I wrote. I remember for me it was a tune that I would have thrown in the dustbin, and Pascal said, "Hey, it's a nice tune." So, and then we started to play it. So sometimes I'm completely wrong, and then afterwards people liked it. So sometimes I'm amazed, and other tunes I think, wow, this is really a good tune. I like it a lot. It's also hard to judge your own tunes, I think. For me,
Definitely.
it's very hard anyway. And
I think this is a really interesting point that I wanted to press you on a little bit further, because you are so prolific. There's so much of your music out there on not just the Naragonia albums, but Novar and Hot Griselda. There's just, you seem to pour out great music, but as you say, there will always be the ones that get,
oh yeah,
that come out and you ignore them.
yeah,
But in order to have so much published music out there, it makes me think how many have been chucked in the bin.
oh yeah,
So many. I'm thinking is that to for you to filter out the ones that you deem the good ones that you want to
yeah,
work with. So are you constantly writing? Are there constantly ideas, or do you? How does that work? That process for you of writing, considering it, throwing it out, working with it.
To be honest, when I work, for example, with the Novar and the Hot Griselda CDs, what I always do is we start with plenty of tunes. We play them through all together and we make the selection together. So we must all four like the tunes, and then we get on with it. And the same with Pascal. We must both like a tune or it won't work. So we always start with 100 tunes and we end up with 20 tunes. I love this way of working because you can be honest. There is enough material anyway. If there's not, I will write new tunes or someone else will write new tunes. But it makes the selection strong, and so you don't have the thing that some people in the band will play the tune while they don't like it, and because it's not a nice start when you don't like a tune and you have to play it. It's not good. So the selection of tunes, it's not me who's doing this. It's a bit, of course. I only keep the tunes that I think this might be a good tune, but I can't really judge well very often. So we do it together. And now I forgot what was the other part of your question, Mel.
Are you constantly writing in order
Yeah,
to
so
have
yeah,
so many to offer to your bands?
yeah. The last year I didn't write any tune except for the theater, because I didn't have the time. For me, what is very essential to write tunes is you need a space with a good acoustics. And I think many people don't realize that it's so important. If you have a bit of a space where your music can really sound, it doesn't need to be a church, but at least a room where you get something back of your music is so extremely important. And I'm very lucky with that because the building next door, it's a spacey building, or spacey, that's not the right word, but a building with lots of space, so I can sit there. I think that for me is the main thing, that you need to be able to feel what you're doing. Good acoustics is so important. And then the feeling of having time. Oh, it's so hard to write a tune when you don't have the time. So that's the reason why last year I was extremely busy. I didn't write any tunes. Last week I had 2 days, first 2 days in 1.5 years, I think, where I had half a day to write some tunes. And I think I made 40 tunes.
40? 40?
From zero, yeah. But it's all scratch, it's not 40 finished tunes, it's all little ideas of some bars.
Yeah.
And another thing which helps me a lot, I will show it to you. I like in folk music, what I like the most is a drone.
Yeah.
So this is my secret weapon.
A Casio keyboard. Wow.
Casio keyboard. So what I can do is put like a drone sound. I always work here with this. It's a very stupid thing. I always work with the sound stereo string, so it's like a synthesizer. But I can put a drone, and I just put a drone, and that puts me in a complete nice droney atmosphere, and then I can start to write tunes. I need to get a bit in the mood, but then I can write tunes very quickly.
That's incredible. It almost like you just have this little meditation with that sound, like much like
Yeah,
the Shruti box in
yeah,
Indian music, in that sense
yeah.
of just create
Or
the
maybe,
atmosphere and off you go.
or maybe I don't know if that is really what happens, the meditation part. I think it just, you get some extra harmonics. I think
Yeah.
that's the real trick. So it's not that I get in a kind of strange mood. I don't smoke any weed when it just, I think I get a bit back from, instantly back from the melody. I think you can have the same with a hurdy-gurdy, for example, where you have this drone that's going on and you play over the drone. That's very inspirational for me. And this is then a bit my hurdy-gurdy drone.
My natural tendency is to think you would be major or minor, but you've got any of the modes open to you in that sense, haven't you?
Everything is open. Yeah, I
weave
just
through.
put one note. I can write so many things. Of course, of these 40 tunes, you must know, in the end, there will be 2 tunes that survive maximum. So that's the way I work. I work very fast.
From those 40, and we're just talking generally here, but
Yeah.
are there similarities between any of those ideas that
Oh,
you might go and think, oh, well, that's an A music, that's a B music,
yeah,
or something like
absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. I think for many people, the biggest burden is to write something good. No, just write and just make fun. Even if nothing comes out of these 40 tunes, I had some lovely hours doing this.
Yeah.
And we as Western people, we always think in terms of production and aim. Maybe this is maybe not the most important part of doing composition. Maybe it's just to let your brain do, let it free and let it go, and even if there's 3 notes that come out, just it's nice, I think of the whole music thing that I do. What I like the most is this part. Just try to make something. The creative part is the nicest part, I think.
Sorry to interrupt, just really quickly want to let you know that there's been a chunk edited out of this free public podcast that's been made available via an extended episode on my Patreon. You can sign up to the private RSS feed and listen to it wherever you listen to your normal podcasts, and you'll get to hear this month an extension about Toon's arranging process and who he works with and how he likes to work with different musicians and what he's looking for when he's building arrangements, as well as other extended conversations that I've had to shave down for this podcast to be within an hour. There's an extra 10-ish minutes on the extension, so it's well worth signing up for, and there's a 7-day free trial anyway if you want to go and check that out. Links in the description. Now back to the interview. Later on this evening, as we're recording this, you are joining me on Patreon with my online community to compose for us a live tune. You're going to start from scratch and write us something in that moment. And now that you've talked a little bit about your process, that actually doesn't surprise me. Actually, maybe we'll get 40 tunes in the hour that we're doing.
We can try.
Who knows? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that process in action, but also for the people who are going to be there to have a little go themselves and just understand that they have the freedom to do this themselves. I think that's the really important thing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Offering
to do that, and being filmed whilst you're doing that. But it will be really interesting to see that progress.
Yeah, for me too. I'm curious.
You've never been filmed whilst composing before?
No.
I just also want to say that you have named a tune after me, Mel's, so it's kind of out there. It was one of the Decombel-Van Mierlo duo albums, and you gifted me that album, and I got there and I thought, is that me? And then I queried it with you, and you was like, yes. So one of the questions that we had come in actually from Phil on Patreon was, how do you name things if you're writing so much? I mean, the way I name things is usually quite difficult because it's like the tune comes easily, but the name not so much. But I mean, what about you?
The same story for me. It's terrible, when we made a new CD with the quartet. It will come out, I think, the end of the year. But now all the tunes, they have a name like Scottish One and Bourrée 3. And so then you have to sit down and invent names. So it's a hell of a job, actually. That's a bit like looking for a band name. It's a hard thing. The name shouldn't be too long. It should sound well. It should be funny. Of course, there's less pressure on a name for a tune than on a name for a band because it's less important, but it stays a hard job to find good titles, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it is just a hard job.
I mean, I have to say, whilst I am very grateful and honoured to have a name a tune by yourself named after me, I did kind of think it's probably because we met about a week before he wrote it and he thought, oh, I'll just call it Mel's, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know
yeah,
what
yeah,
that
yeah,
process is like. And you think, oh yeah, I'll just call it that. Or I
yeah.
was
Oh,
just with that person, or I look out the window and see a bullfinch or a kind of skylark
yeah,
or whatever, and you
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
always
yeah,
draw
yeah,
from nature. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
of your tunes are.
Absolutely.
One of the pieces I'm thinking of, the lapwings and
Yeah,
crossbills, is that
yeah.
correct? When I listen to that, it's very polyphonic in the sense of I can hear the calls of those birds. I can see the
Oh,
wings
nice.
flapping.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
that by design, or did you write a tune that felt like that, or were you
yeah.
looking at videos of those birds, or
No, more the feeling of the tunes. But I never wrote music on bird sounds. But I think in the future I would like to mix bird sounds with music. I did already on some CDs, so but I want to go further with that. Yeah, I would love to explore that a bit. Maybe not only birds, but some amphibians as well. And yeah, you have such a beautiful sounds in nature.
definitely?
But
I
yeah,
think
but
that I mean seems to be where a trajectory of your life is heading with this project that
mm,
marries the two together with the nature walks and everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And actually, just off the top of my head, I'm just going to plug Miranda Rutter, who's a wonderful English viola player, even, who's
yeah.
just come out with her bird sounds or bird songs
I'm
album.
so curious for that
Yeah,
album, actually. I know it's there. Andy told me
yeah,
some weeks ago. He said it was brilliant, and I'm sure I know Miranda a bit. Yeah, I'm sure it's brilliant. Yeah,
yeah.
wonderful woman.
We've talked a little bit about your situation there at home and the building next door you alluded to earlier. Now, this is something that was mentioned with Pascal last month, the
Hmm.
Weekschlag, but we didn't talk about it because I wanted to talk to you more about it. And I've had the pleasure of being there on 2 occasions now, I think, for
Yeah,
music workshops that you run
yeah.
sporadically. But what do you do most of the time from that building? And you're running courses in the outdoors with young people. So tell me a little bit more about that and how that works into your life, because it's a huge thing that you're doing there.
It's a huge thing, but we had some very wild dreams with this building, and it was more during the pandemic that we had all these wild dreams. We did a big yeah, building project in the building as well, big windows, insulation, new inside light, so it changed a lot.
Mm.
But now my life, as I told you, got so busy with lots of concerts, lots of projects, lots of things going on all the time, that the we downsized a bit the ambition for this building. So at this moment, the building is will be 2 times a year a workshop that we run, which we love, but it's always a lot of work,
Huge, yeah.
huge work. So twice a year seems a good balance, and the rest became very dry. I don't know if that's you say that in English, but it's just renting out the building. I still do lots of cleaning there and lots of yeah, it's very much practical stuff. Like last week, I spent or 2 weeks ago, I spent half a day trying to get the fridge again to work. So it's all the time this kind of things. I have to the groups that rent a building, I have to let them in, and I do all the administration. So anyway, it's a lot of work. But the dream of running their things with children, we strongly had this dream, but at this moment, it's not possible. I teach in the music school 2 nights a week. I do the building, I do the touring, and I do half of my job is the theater. So which with which I play, maybe I shouldn't exaggerate, but at least 60 days a year I work for the theater. So it's already 4 things that run at the same time, and then of
Mm.
course the family here. So it's too much sometimes. It's not too much, but to do the building
Yeah.
as well and a big project there, I can't do it this moment.
Something for the future, though, if
Something for
you
the
have
future.
options to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
wind
yeah.
something down to build that back
Yeah,
up.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
The theatre actually is another thing I wanted to, because me being an actor musician now after one
Yeah,
amazing, incredible experience, so I
yeah,
have that feather in my cap now.
yeah,
But
lovely.
the theatre for you is you're more of a you are in one place with it, and you are like a resident musician. Is how you've explained it to me. But tell us a little bit more about Talente. Is as long as I'm pronouncing that
Yeah,
correctly.
very good, very good. Yeah, so it's theater for children, Talente, and it's a man who we met. His name is Maarten van Aarschot. We met him. I think it must be around 12 years ago or something, or 11 years ago. And we decided to make a show together. The first show we made was called Boom. And I will show, there is a picture, maybe.
Ah, that's what that poster was last
Yeah, that's
month.
the
For anyone
poster.
watching the video,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
is
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was our, and as you can see on the poster, it's very beautiful. I find it very beautiful
Yeah, the
images,
design.
the very beautiful design, and it combines puppetry with video images, with light, with some real role playing by people, with music. That's the main thing. We made this first show, and I think we played it 350 times in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an amazing, big thing actually, big and small because we play for children, for very small children. This was until 5 years, so small children, and always maximum 60 children, but we played it a lot of times. And then now I'm touring with two other new shows, and it means that I write the music. Now I'm writing the music for the next show, which will start in January and February. So I first work very closely together with Maarten to write the music, and then it's very funny to do that because it also has to do with composing. But then he said, "Yeah, this is now you have to write something that is hard to explain. But for example, here is a girl." Going into a harbor and there is some other animals coming from there and I need music that captures that atmosphere, so I have to write, and I need 1 minute or half a minute of that, and then it goes into the next scenery, and so I have to write very precise things, and then I give him always some options and he chooses, and so it's more like a collecta, like
Yeah, yeah. Collage of
everything's
ideas.
collage music that I would never make myself,
Yeah.
but it's in function of the theater, and I like it. It's another discipline.
The show I was in, by the way, because I haven't said it, is Fisherman's Friends, the
Mm.
musical, which is Fisherman's Friends are a real band. They're a group of shanty singers from
Mhm.
Cornwall here in the UK. And I was part of the UK tour, and I went to Canada for 8 weeks when the show went out there. But who devised the show, the Melodeon player who devised the show, is Hazel Askew,
Yeah,
and all credit goes to her for the Melodeon parts. And when I got involved, there were a few little bits that have been added in since they did the R&D, the research and development on the show. So I did get involved with a very actor muso part of the show where we were pretending to be a harbour. Hazel is going to be one of my guests in a couple of months' time, so I'm very
oh,
much looking forward to
wonderful.
sitting down and
She's
chatting more to her about
absolutely
the
wonderful.
division of that show if she's
Yeah,
happy to talk to me. So, like you say, the whole collaborative effort of everybody focusing on their specific role but also their curiosity about how it all fits in together. There was nothing more satisfying than being part of that machine, and really working towards that common focus. But the fact that you get to kind of continually come up with new work, hard work, right? It's hours of time
it's
to
hours. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if your process of composing is to allow yourself the time to do it, and you have quite savvy, hopefully that translates, but you have a savvy way of working out whether this is good, this is wrong, this is not going to work. You can quickly decide on what
Yeah,
you come up with is going to work or not. And
yeah,
i
yeah,
th-
yeah.
i think for me, I'm too critical of myself, so too much
Yeah.
for me ends up in that unknown pile.
All right.
And I throw too much away, and it's something I've had to try and learn to not throw my ideas out so quickly, because it will be useful somewhere or someone will
Yeah, yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
difficult one.
It's a difficult one. What can help a lot is to record yourself and listen to it later, even after a year, and then you say, "Oh, yeah, it's not that bad. It's
That's
nice.
exactly what happened actually. This phone, it gets filled up with ideas
Yeah,
and then they get forgotten
very
about.
good.
And then you think, oh, I just need a melody for a song that I'm working on with this singer. And you go back through, and lo and behold, there was this. We needed an anthemic finale. I'd written one about 4 years previously and luckily had
Lovely.
recorded it. Then it was like, oh, that's going to work brilliantly. And we sang the lyrics over it, and it was as if both pieces had been written together. And it was like, well, thank you 4 years
Wow.
ago, Mel, because it's sometimes it works
That's
like
the
that.
way it goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it goes both ways. Sometimes you listen back to it and then you say, "Oh yeah, that's the reason why I threw it away." And sometimes you say, "Oh yeah, damn, why did I forget this? It's so wonderful." Yeah.
I just want to go to some questions that we've had through from Patreon because
Mhm.
this month people have been very chatty. We have a new member who I think you might know. She knows you, Sandra de Jong
Yeah,
Groesberg
I know from the Holland.
from the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
She has posted a lot of questions, which is great. A
All
lot of
right.
them we've already covered because they were my questions as
Yeah.
well. But one of them that I think is really important to talk about is how do you keep pleasure and fun and a feeling of play and freshness in performing when you sometimes have so many gigs in a row and obviously everything that goes with touring life? Is it the audience or the interaction with the musicians or something else? Do you ever get tired, and how do you deal with that, and how do you keep mentally
Yeah.
happy as possible?
Ah, yeah, yeah. Very good question. And I think all the musicians will recognize this. I think the closer you stay to music, the more chance you will have that you will keep the fun in your life. And then I mean, if performing becomes something that you do because um, you want to be on stage or because you want to sell your product or you want, I don't know, whatever, I think then you will get very bored. The real trick, of course, is the what we were talking about is the creativity, and that's, or you can call it as well, a kind of exchange with audience, with your fellow musicians, and then it's magic if that happens. But when it becomes something that you just do as a job, then I would stop immediately. Last Sunday, for example, we played in Krefeld in a garden. It was raining so much. There was 100 persons. It was acoustically. It was like pouring rain, but the magic was totally there. It was so beautiful. So I think it all has to do with what is really important and why do you do it? If you do it for the music and the exchange, then it will never be boring. If you will do it because you want to earn money, you never should do it because you will not never get rich of playing music. But when you do it to play music with your fellow bandmates, then it's wonderful. It's all about communication and exchange. I think when all the rest, forget it. It's what helps me a lot, but that's again a personal thing. I can't live of music. I can't live of only gigs. I will not be able to live comfortable. So that's why I do the music school. You could say in a way as well the theater. It gives me the freedom to choose and to enjoy in a way. When I
Yeah.
clean each week the building next door, it's for 3-4 hours of cleaning. Yeah, it's very boring, but I know, okay, in a way, this makes the other thing possible, and then it's okay. It's this is life.
It's balance.
Yeah, it's the balance, and I like this very practical things as well. I restored lots of 4 houses. I did lots of practical work, and everything is a bit in balance. You can have as much joy, but only joy would be terrible in a way
Yeah.
as well. It's always looking for a balance, and
There's the building, but you have so much land and everything that goes with it as well. So just the physical use of your body and switching your brain into that practical application that's
yeah,
totally different to music. I think
yeah,
I know a
it's
lot of
very
musicians
important.
who have that
Yeah,
dichotomy, I want to say, that kind of change. They're brilliant musicians, they go out on tour and play with some fantastic bands, but then they are at home. I know a lot of woodworkers, people who are
mhm.
very skilled carpenters,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
joiners, and physical labour it goes hand in hand, I think,
yeah.
with
Sports as
musical
well.
creativity.
Sporting is, I think, very important. I play each week football with my children and the children of other men here in the neighborhood, and we each Wednesday 4 o'clock we play football, and it's a holy moment. It's so important. I look so much forward to it because I need to move. Otherwise, you feel terrible when you sit all day and.
Definitely. And I think to play music, we have to sort of have contact with our bodies and make sure that we're checking in with it all and
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
after it in different
absolutely.
ways.
Yeah, yeah, and playing music is quite exhausting for your body. Yeah, it's
Mm. And
well,
driving, sitting down for a long
oh,
period of time.
driving, yeah, and driving as well.
I
Absolutely.
find that most of the physical work that I do, which is predominantly swimming and Pilates, I love
Yeah,
Pilates,
lovely.
is to look after my hips because I spend so much time sitting down that my
Yeah,
hips are really out of shape and
yeah,
quite
yeah, yeah, yeah,
painful.
yeah, yeah. I
So
agree.
most of it is just counteracting, but I love it. I love how it just has that brain body connection
Yeah, yeah,
away
yeah.
from something else because then I personally find that that then feeds into my music. I'm more aware of using my body or just that whole kind of circle of things, isn't it? How we look after our mind, how we look after our job, how we look after our body. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
all in there together. Another question from Sandra is she said she did a short workshop with you on bellows technique where you used a simple melody, made you practice something really precisely, stops or swells or getting a tone to start in a specific way. And she's using that as an example of if you had to name 3 things you would always want to cover in your lessons, or the things that you want your students to really be aware of, what would they be? What are the 3 layers, the 3 main objects that you would want them to think about?
On the Melodeon, you mean, or do you mean?
She doesn't specify, but I think she, as a Melodian player, is talking about that example. But is it different for you for different instruments? I would imagine yes. But do you teach a variety of different instruments, and do you teach them in different ways? That might be an interesting.
I teach bagpipes and I teach Melodeon in the music school. But wow, that's a hard question for me to answer. But I think for me the most important is don't forget the music when you practice. Music is like talking, and someone said to me it was Casper Glaval from Hot Griselda, and he said we all play music like we are. So you play music like your personality is. Maybe that's a better explanation. And when he told me that, I said, "Yeah, are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah." And when I start looking around me, it's true. Everyone plays. It's like you hear the person. Music is a kind of communication. If we approach it like that, then some things start to be very important. Don't talk too fast. Don't talk too loud. Don't. Everything becomes a bit in balance, and I think that's the best approach for music. I personally, I told him last week when he was here, I learned a lot of Andy Cutting. And what I always find amazing with Andy Cutting is he plays in such a way in a band, you don't hear him, but if you take him out, the band is gone. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's so beautiful. Of course, he does much more than that. His harmonic skills and he
Yeah.
has everything. But that's something which I find very remarkable with Andy.
I completely agree with you, and there are several musicians I can think of. But just recently, a couple of days ago, I saw Blowsabella in Oxford,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I find that in that lineup, Andy is very much part of the back line. You know, he's the
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
basket that's holding it all together. And really, unfortunately, they were having some sound technical difficulties with his microphone, so he was dropping in and out, and it was really obvious.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
particularly
yeah,
as they're currently without the hurdy-gurdy, which is
yeah.
soon to change. But it was just like, oh no, it completely loses
Yeah.
some aspect of danceability for me. I mean, it's not that it was difficult to dance to, but you just that enjoyment of that undercarriage of everything.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so I
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
get what you're
yeah.
saying. But I
And
think with him, it's knowing him and his cheekiness, his personality. There's a lot of that in his playing a lot of the time, depending on who he's playing with. But I've detected that a number of times, that boyish, cheeky kind of
as
attitude, that
well. Yeah,
energy,
yeah,
which is really lovely to
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and a harmonic ear and approach that's so extremely beautiful. Yeah, it's crazy.
and actually just going back to being on the road and living in the moment as a musician who's could get swamped by everything. Sandra's question, I wanted to relay a story that Andy said because recently him and Gudrun and yourself and Pascal and I think the quartet, you were all together, weren't you, at a
Yeah,
festival
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in And he was saying how you were all crammed in the car together. There was some mix-up, and he ended up getting the Melodeon out in the back with no space whatsoever, but an inch to move the bellows. And then Gudrun got the fiddle out, and you both just lost it. You and Pascal were just like creasing up. But I thought that sounds like such a gorgeous,
that was
spontaneous moment.
such a beautiful moment. It was a very long time ago that I laughed so hard. It was so amazing. It was really, that's pure cheekiness, but in a beautiful way. I was wonderful.
But it's
Very
that thing of,
beautiful.
he said you were all so exhausted and you could have just sat in silence for that whole car journey. But actually, it was like, no, let's live in this moment differently
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
And I
that
think
was,
that's what it's about, isn't it? In my view of it, it's really teaches you to live in the moment and make the most of that.
yeah, absolutely.
And that was such a great example of
Yeah,
how to just
absolutely.
have this hilarious silliness.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was so extremely funny. It was really lovely.
I want to talk a little bit, and we'll finish with this, the 20th anniversary of
Yeah,
Naragonia. You had the wonderful concert in Leuven in December.
yeah,
I couldn't get to it, unfortunately. I was really gutted, but you've got the album coming out, and is there a
yeah.
little video that goes with it as well?
There is a video now on Facebook that is bits showing how the concert was. The biggest part was the concert, and then afterwards there was a ball, which was lovely as well. We I think we started at 8 and we finished at 1 o'clock or something, and that was a very big party, or maybe even later. But yeah, that was a wonderful moment. Just wonderful, absolutely
It almost
beautiful.
epitomizes everything that we've talked about working with other people, and that collection of musicians that you've met and cherished
Yeah,
and become very good friends with over the years. And just,
absolutely.
can you kind of describe what that was like to all? I mean, I know you did it for the 10th anniversary as well, but what it was like to play your pieces with every one of those musicians kind of adding so much to every element of that music.
I remember that I told during the concert, and I think that's a good description in a way. It's like, or maybe it's not a good description, but it's that kind of feeling. It's when you drive a small car and you like it, but this was such a massive sound. It was like, yeah, we felt very much carried by all the musicians. It was absolutely amazing. And there you had in Leuven was 650 people. We entered on the stage. It was like a massive explosion of all the people. Wah, yeah. They were all in such a good mood. People had traveled so far to come to Leuven. So even before we started playing was already massive sound, and then the concert was just absolutely lovely. And what I liked a lot, and I like a lot to work in this way, also with Andy and Gudrun last week, everyone knows his music. You just rehearse it once and you play.
Yeah.
That if you don't know the music, it's your problem. You have to be prepared and then it's wonderful because there is a kind of spontaneous side in it. We rehearsed it once, and then in the afternoon we tried to play everything through once, but we nearly didn't have the time to do that. And then there was the concert, so it was very compact. And now when we listen back to the recording, there was lots of freedom, lots of space. Of course, there were structures, but it's again that kind of exchange that happens, that you leave it a bit open and it happens. People just they feel, when you are good with good musicians, they feel, here I can take a bit of space, there I can leave a gap, and that is absolutely wonderful. So it was just brilliant for us.
It's that wonderful rarity and, like, not tying it down too much.
No, no, no.
And relying on the fact that everyone on that stage is
Yeah, yeah,
more
absolutely.
than qualified. So it's just, let's have a conversation and enjoy that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Very,
that
very
was that
special.
was that was amazing. Yeah, it was we felt so how do you say, thankful after that. It was like, wow, yeah. also for all the people who came from so far, it was.
Well, I know the whole front row was taking over with the Brits. It was the British invasion.
It was. And all at the side of Andy was very funny. Yeah, it was very, very funny.
I saw so many photos and videos, and I'm very much looking forward to the album to hear exactly what went
Yeah.
on. When will it be out?
The 7th of June.
So not
Yeah,
long.
is
It
the
will be out
official.
just after this podcast goes out. So
Yeah,
I'll leave
official
links.
release date is the 7th of June. We already have it here at home, the CD, but it's yeah,
Excellent.
yeah,
You've got a new tune book, have you not? The third iteration.
yeah.
Yeah. So there, I'm going to leave links to all of this down below, just as I did with Pascal last month. So do go and
Lovely.
check those out in the description, guys. This has been a wonderful conversation, as I knew it would be. It's always wonderful to have time to chat,
Absolutely,
and I know that
absolutely, Mel.
we've both supported each other over the years in just conversations about life and music, and I know I've needed that, and I think you have too. And it's been
I
lovely
enjoyed
to have that.
every talk with you, Mel.
Thank you so
It's the
much.
same for me. Yeah.
And yeah, I very much look forward to the Melinar this evening, which will be a hit. I know it will be, because it's always interesting to see these things.
I'm very curious myself, but let's
Everybody's
see.
excited. So yeah, if you want to get hold of that, it will be available as a recording on my Patreon. I'll leave a link downstairs to that. And you can get this and all of the other extended podcasts and the guest tutor Melinars from this series available there. So thank you so much, Toon, for adding to that collection. I feel like a little bit like, I don't know if you know the Marvel characters, like going around like Thanos and collecting all of the jewels and the gems from across Europe, and I'm building up my cuff. I feel very grateful to all of you for
Me
what you're
too.
providing and sharing. So thank you so much, and I
Yeah,
will
me
see you
too, Mel.
soon.
Yeah, see you.
Oh, I cannot tell you how much it means to me that we sat down and had that moment together, as we have tried to create all of the times that we have met each other, but it's often hard when we are working and we are kind of like boats in the night, just kind of passing each other. But the amount of times that I've pinched myself, that I have made so many of my musical heroes my friends, it honestly still doesn't make sense to me, even now that I'm doing this podcast and I get to sit down and be this little accordion geek and just kind of living this dream of getting to know these people on a more intimate level and sharing that with you guys as well. I really hope that you're enjoying the podcast. Do come on my socials, let me know. I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Mel Biggs Music, or Mel Biggs Melodeon Teacher on Instagram. Also my YouTube channel as well. Obviously, if you are watching this on the video format, then hi, you can see my face. This month, over on my Patreon in June, we have the wonderful Benjamin Mack, another wonderful Belgian player. I seem to be kind of living there at the moment with these incredible musicians. Ben is coming on. I met him at Halsey Manor last November, so you might have seen that vlog where I met him and Filippo Gambetta. Benjamin is coming on to do a Melinar for me on feeling accents and fingering, and just trying to kind of get you to think a little bit more about how you play your music rather than what you play. It's going to be a Melinar tutorial for all levels, but particularly aimed towards the beginner improver end of things, but you can always be learning things even if you are beyond that level already. So definitely have a little look in the description below. You'll find links down there to my Patreon. A lot of stuff is available for free, so you can get on. There's also a 7-day free trial. There's no obligation to stay afterwards, so do come and check that out. Benjamin will be joining me on Wednesday the 26th of June at 7 p.m. UK time. It'll be live on Zoom, and if you can't make the live, you can catch up with the recording in your own time. Just before I leave you, do you remember when I interviewed Luc Attebeau back in January, and he maybe alluded to the fact that there might be something in the pipeline of a visit to England? Well, I can now tell you that that is happening. He is coming over with his duo Turbo Bal with hurdy-gurdy player, violin player Cécile Biraud-Delroux, and they will be doing a very mini 3-date tour. They're coming to Stamford near Peterborough on the 14th of June. Then on the Saturday night, they'll be in Kennington near Oxford on the 15th of June. And on the 16th of June, they're going to be in Sheffield as part of the Eurosession events there. All 3 events will have dance workshops beforehand, with a full 2-hour workshop on the Sunday before the Sheffield Bal. So if you're not sure about Bal folk dancing, you can learn all the basics, but the specific little sprinkles that Turbo Bal bring with them are the Poitou and Limousin dances, which I got obsessed about last summer when I went to Le Son Continu and did lots of dancing out there. If that takes your fancy, there's a link in the description to a little mini tour website that I made for them. You can find out more about the band, you can listen to them, and you can get your tickets. Please get your tickets in advance if you want to come, and I hope to see you there. I'm doing all 3 dates because I'm a total freak, and it's such an exciting opportunity to get a real French band over. It doesn't happen that often, and these are 2 of the best young modern contemporary players that play very trad but with a really nice twist. So please, if you can make it, even just to come and enjoy the music, check out that link in the description, and I will see you there. Thank you so much for listening this month. Do come and chat to me on my socials, like, comment, subscribe, leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple if you're listening there. That would be really, really helpful. Give this a share to your mates who you think is going to be interested in listening to these interviews, and I hope to see you / be talking to you next month when we have Benjamin Mack on the podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye.